Break out your Kony 2012 bracelets because he's back. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Motley Stew Show, where we look at some of the biggest stories in politics and news each week, try to get behind the echo chamber and find out what's really going on. While most of the world is focusing on the fact that the Pope is coming to the US for the first time, I wanted to focus on a different religious leader, one who has a much smaller following, but a much more dangerous following. Back in the late 1980s, Joseph Kony created something called the Lord's Resistance Army, or otherwise known as the LRA. But that actually wasn't its original title. The group was originally known as the United Holy Salvation Army and Uganda Christian Army / Movement, but really that doesn't fit on a bumper sticker or a logo, so they shifted it. One of the biggest things about Joseph Kony is the fact that his military, his army, is actually built up of child soldiers. These are kids who are in towns that his army takes over and they steal from their families, and they indoctrinate them. Kony is not the only person who does this, but he does it with precision. Most people on the internet came to know who Joseph Kony was from the wildly successful viral campaign Kony 2012, which was created by a group called Invisible Children. Now, the group did its job well, and the campaign went everywhere. Everyone knew who Kony was, and they bought a ton of merchandise, which helped to bring money to the group, which was supposed to help fund finding Kony and getting those child soldiers back to their towns, back to their families. But the group itself became more of a story than Joseph Kony did, and it came under heavy scrutiny for a number of different reasons. And eventually the media spotlight caused one of the co-founders of the company to have a very public and very embarrassing mental breakdown. After that happened, the group kind of faded away, and so did the story about Kony and his importance. But this should serve as a lesson of what happens when something falls off the internet. When it stops trending on Twitter, it doesn't mean it stops happening in the real world. Kony still exists. He still has an army that is anywhere from 150 to 300 child soldiers. These children still need to be returned to their families. And we're lucky enough that right now there is actually a former Marine who's trying to help this happen. Reported earlier this week on an article featured on Gawker by writer Andy Cush, a former US Marine named Jason Constantine may have actually made contact with Joseph Kony. He has a handwritten letter and a supposedly recent photo that have yet to be verified by anybody. But the letter itself does say it's from Joseph Kony, and it mentions the idea of a peace process, or at least an avenue for which Kony could surrender or bring those children back. Now, as I said, Gawker or any other news sources have yet to actually verify that the legitimacy of the letter and the photo, but they have verified that Jason Constantine does have contacts in Uganda. So his expertise and his reach into the LRA and into Joseph Kony's group is indeed true. The letter itself seen here is actually dated August 28th of 2015. This didn't happen that long ago. Constantine has said he's reached out to the US State Department twice already to no avail, so he actually decided to go public. So he took to Twitter under the handle jkony03 and actually posted some of these images, posted the letter, posted the idea that Kony is out there still and ready to somehow make connections back to the world. But that account is now gone. So who knows exactly if he did make contact with somebody and they told him to remove it because it was harming the process, but things might be going on, we don't really know. Through some of Constantine's confidential sources, he actually also provided where Kony has been at least recently. There's an area in Darfur called the Radorn National Park, which is known as a well-known hideout for the LRA. And the UN has also pointed to another region called Kafia Kingi, and they've mentioned this is also a safe haven for Kony. And at least to some people, that was the last place he was known to be. Now, you might be wondering exactly how did Jason Constantine get this information? How did he get the letter? How did he make the contact with Kony's group? And it actually came through a person named Richard Odong, who was himself a member of the LRA. He was kidnapped and brought into the army, and he since escaped and actually got political asylum years later. He was also featured in a documentary from Al Jazeera talking about this exact experience. Now, this past January, another person, a general in the LRA named Dominic Ongwen, also surrendered, which was seen as a major blow to the LRA and another sign of the dwindling power of the LRA, but yet with 150 to 300 child soldiers, they are still lethal. Now, while there is no huge social media campaign going on, there's no well-produced videos, and no merchandise that you can buy to help support this cause, it should be openly talked about, and we should be pressuring the US State Department to at least answer what they're going to do, if anything, to try to get in contact with Kony and to try to free those child soldiers, to try to reintegrate them back into society, which is going to take more than just returning them to their families. These children have been brainwashed. They've been shown how to kill and how not to care. So a lot of work is going to need to be done. But then comes the question about Kony himself. How exactly do you do a peace process with a man who is seen as a terrorist by many nations, and the International Criminal Court has already tried and found him guilty of crimes against humanity and war crimes? So how do you exactly do a peace process with this person? Which in and of itself actually leads me to the question for this week. What would you do? What do you think should be done with Joseph Kony? Should there try to be a negotiation to try to bring him in? Or would you just go in there once you know where he is and try to take him out? Let me know in the comments down below. And I know this episode was a little short, but if you watched watched the last episode, you kind of earned it because that one was really long. So thanks again for watching another episode of the Motley Stew Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so here, and that would really help out, but I don't have any bracelets or other merchandise to send you for it. I'll make you a sticker. Stay tuned for next week, and as always, here's a little bit of Logan.
Hey Logan, you're crazy. Hi. You got all the balls in there? Escape!
Through some of Constantine's confidential sources,